not sure where to start. The past few weeks have been pretty rough for me. I'd lost my mother last spring to cancer. It caused a great deal of grief among my family. However, my father took it the worst. He was never the same after Mom's death. He'd lock himself in the house, all alone, spacing himself into the rest of the room, or the world, spacing himself from me. It was odd. Although, throughout his entire life, he'd always been so outgoing. My mother, my sister, and I were all he had. When my older sister had grown up, married, and moved a few towns over, I guess I was the only one he had now. I received a call. It was on 4chan, an infamous image boarding site, reading the comments of one of those "you laugh, you lose" threads. Whatever happened to the original cunt... right. Staying away from the topic. Having been in front of my monitor for hours in dead silence, I've been caught off guard by my ringtone. Joey Zuckerberg's Believe It or Not blared from my phone's tiny yet powerful speakers. I nearly jumped out of my seat. I grabbed my phone and checked the caller ID. It was a local hospital calling me to tell me that my father had killed himself. A week later, my sister came down for the funeral. It was nice to see her again after all these years, even if it had been under harsh circumstances. She didn't bring that douchebag of a husband with her either. We shared a few hugs, talked about the deceased for a while, and then she was on her way. His house and all his contents were given to me. Needless to say, it was a nice step up from my one-bedroom apartment. I decided to go snooping around in the new place in the following day, maybe clean the place up a bit. Honestly, I had no clue what I'd find in there. For all I knew, they'd lost all sense of modesty throughout the following death of my mother. I half expected to see shit smeared along the walls, along with some wrecked furniture. I was at the front door. Upon grabbing the doorknob, an instant feeling of dread overcame my body. I froze up. The idea of being in the same room with my father had hung himself and didn't sit well with me. I shook my head and swallowed my disturbed feelings. I felt a deep breath. Prepping myself, I closed my eyes and opened the door. The front door led me to the hallway that split into two directions. In front of me was a door leading into the bathroom. To the right was the living room. Expecting the worst, I turned the corner. To my surprise, everything was in a pristine condition. I scanned the area. There were a few couches surrounding an ancient-looking television set. My father had never been tech-savvy. That caught my eye, though. That wasn't what it was. With a large fireplace near the seating, I didn't remember this. Granted, I'd only been in the house a handful of times before, but from recollection, this wasn't there before. Now, the fireplace isn't exactly what caught my attention. It was what was mounted above it. It was a large framed, painted portrait of my mother, surrounded the candles on the fireplace mantel. Something just seemed a bit off. She had a condescending smirk on her face, as if to say, "I know something you don't," again. That eerie feeling. I remember I really felt as if it wasn't supposed to be in the house. Being the dumbass I am, I decided to stick around for a while longer. Venturing in the kitchen, I snooped around. Cupboards were filled with old-looking dish sets, and fridge was filled with nothing but beer and water. Good old Dad. A thought crossed my mind. I should check out the master bedroom, the room where he'd hung himself. I pushed back an unsure feeling I had, and started heading toward the back of the house. The door to my father's room was slightly open, knots in my stomach growing ever so tight. I slowly put the door ajar. The hinges left forward in obnoxiously loud creak. I had no idea why I was being so quiet. I tried hard to convince myself that I was the only person in the house. The butterflies in my stomach refused to go away. The master bedroom was normal. Everything looked clear. I took a few steps while scanning the area. There was a nightstand to the right of his bed, his glasses resting atop, seemingly untouched. He was never liked wearing them. Said they made him look like a sissy boy. To the left of the room was a door. Something, I didn't know what, drew me to this door. I wanted to open it. No, I needed to open it. Making my way over to the mysterious door, I made sure to be quiet. Again, don't ask me why. I just felt like I'd be disturbing something if I made a noise. I bit my lower lip, placed my hand on the knob. I was trembling in anticipation. I closed my eyes, counting down from 3 and quickly opening the closet. Coats. Lots of coats. Some pants. Shoes, too. If that's what you're into, it was an ordinary walk-in closet. I took a sigh, relieved, but secretly disappointed. Until I saw it, something shiny on the floor. Kneeling down, I moved a few shoeboxes away from out of the way. It was a brass handle bolted to the ground. I also noticed a crease in the carpet floor. It was a small hatch leading into the basement. My heart raced. What did I get down there? My lust for adventure had gotten the better of me. Without thinking, I grabbed the brass handle and flung the hatch open. I peeked inside. It was dark. All my instincts went against that I was about to do, but I completely ignored them. I jumped down. Luckily, it wasn't that high of a drop where I'd be able to pull myself out if I needed to. The basement was dark and extremely dusty. Fishing into my pocket, I pulled out my Zippo lighter. It took me a few tries, but I finally managed to get a steady flame to light my small portion of the room. That's when I saw the last thing I'd ever expect to see in my father's basement. A computer. Sitting on the room was a small desk, keyboard, mouse, and monitor. One of those white plastic chairs had pushed onto the desk. Curiously, I walked over to the station. The computer looked new, as if it had never been used. This couldn't be my father's. Why would he have such a nice rig like this sitting in the basement? I pulled a flimsy chair to the desk and took a seat in front of the monitor. I crossed my fingers, leaned over, and tried booting up the computer. Eureka! It worked. The Windows 7 boot logo appeared on the screen. Again, it strikes me odd that my father owns such a nice and expensive-looking computer. It required me to select a user. There was only one. Disappointment. A chill went down my spine. Disappointment? Why would his name his profile that? I checked it. It asked me for a password. I grinned and typed Cheyenne, my mother's name. I'll be damned, it worked. I cracked my neck to the side. Something was wrong. His desktop background was solid black. There was no start bar, and there was only one icon in the middle of the screen with a single executable file. Choke.exe. My hands trembled. I had no idea what I was doing, why I came down here in the first place. I wanted to turn around and get back to the comfort of my apartment. Curiosity wouldn't let me. I couldn't control myself. Almost against my will, I hovered the cursor over the icon and double-clicked. The screen flickered. I figured there was something wrong with the cord. I reached my hand behind the machine, feeling for wires. Impossible. Nothing was plugged in. The computer emitted a high-pitched buzz, almost as if it was working itself too hard. Shades of blue, red, and green flashed on and off of the monitor. The computer's whining became louder and louder, spurting with life, increasing with intensity with every second. All of a sudden, everything became quiet again. I looked at the screen. There was a red dot in the middle. The very middle. Text underneath, simply stating, disappointment. My heart was pounding my chest. Everything had come to a standstill. I relaxed, but what seemed like a few seconds until I heard it, the sound of heavy breathing and footsteps behind me. Coming closer, I didn't dare look, shifting my gaze from the computer monitor. The footsteps stopped. Whoever or whatever was behind me had leaned over. His mouth was right next to my ear. I heard a familiar voice whisper, choke. With great force, a rope had been wrapped around my neck. I screamed, loud as I could. The rope had tightened. I'd been yanked backwards out of my chair. I couldn't breathe. My neck was sore. My vision slowly starting to fade away due to the lack of oxygen. I was going to die. I gagged and clawed at my neck. There was nothing there. I was on my hands and knees, gasping for air. My vision had returned. I stooped up and staggered around, trying to regain my bearings. I was in the living room, right in front of the fireplace. Looking down at me was the portrait of my mother, looking down upon me with that condescending smirk. present day. As I sit there writing this, it's my dingy one-bedroom apartment. I can honestly say there is no place like home. I had no idea what the hell happened. Honestly, I don't want to know. All I'm sure of it is that I'm never setting foot in that house again.